Geneticists have found traces of biblical figures hidden in the DNA of modern populations. An international team of genetic experts examined the ancient DNA extracted from 93 individuals. All these people died over 1,500 years at 5 different sites in the Middle East. All of them were part of the Canaanite civilization, which thrived for some 4,700 years up until around 1200 BCE. However, what surprises the scientists is the length they can now make between these ancient biblical people and their modern-day descendants. Geneticists have found traces of biblical figures hidden in the DNA of modern populations. The Canaanites lived in the lands that lie between modern Egypt and historic Mesopotamia, which stretched in an arc from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. Mesopotamia covered parts of the modern Southwest Asian countries of Syria, Turkey, Iraq, and Kuwait. The Canaanites lived in what today is now Israel, as well as in parts of modern Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. In the Bible, the book of Genesis states that the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. The descendants of Canaan according to the biblical account are the people that came to be called the Canaanites. And in a famous passage, the book of Exodus describes a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites. The results of this study of Canaanite genetics were announced in May 2020, and it's the largest of its kind undertaken in the Middle East to date. It's an incredible technical achievement that DNA can now be extracted from such ancient bones. However, what is equally astonishing is what the scientists were able to identify about how Canaanite DNA lives on in a group of people who walk the earth today. Before we get into the detail of the connections revealed by the experts between ancient and modern people, let's learn a little more about the Canaanites. Untangling the precise origins of these ancient people is a tricky business. They are best known as the people who lived in a land flowing with milk and honey until they were vanquished by the ancient Israelites and disappeared from history. But a scientific report published today reveals that the genetic heritage of the Canaanites survives in many modern-day Jews and Arabs. The study in Cell also shows that migrants from the distant Caucasus Mountains combined with the indigenous population to forge the unique Canaanite culture that dominated the area between Egypt and Mesopotamia during the Bronze Age, lasting from approximately 3500 BC until 1200 BC. The team extracted ancient DNA from the bones of 73 individuals buried over the course of 1,500 years at 5 Canaanite sites scattered across Israel and Jordan. They also factored in data from an additional 20 individuals from 4 sites previously reported. Individuals from all sites are highly genetically similar, says co-author and molecular evolutionist Liran Carmel of Jerusalem's Hebrew University. So while the Canaanites lived in far-flung city-states, and never coalesced into an empire, they shared genes as well as a common culture. The researchers also compared the ancient DNA with that of modern populations and found that most Arab and Jewish groups in the region owe more than half of their DNA to Canaanites and other peoples who inhabited the ancient Near East, an area encompassing much of the modern Levant, Caucasus, and Iran. The study, a collaborative effort between Carmel's lab, the Ancient DNA Lab at Harvard. Mark Haber, a geneticist at the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute in Hingston, United Kingdom, co-led a 2017 study of 5 Canaanite individuals from the coastal town of Sidon. The results showed that modern Lebanese can trace more than 90% of their genetic ancestry to Canaanites.
We're sitting next to one of the big 5 cities of the Philistines, the city of Ashkelon.
As Egyptians built pyramids and biblical texts, written many centuries later, insist that Yahweh promised the land of Canaan to the Israelites after their escape from Egypt. Jewish scripture says the newcomers eventually triumphed, but archaeological evidence doesn't show widespread destruction of Canaanite populations. Instead, they appear to have been gradually overpowered by later invaders such as the Philistines, Greeks, and Romans. The Canaanites spoke a Semitic language and were long thought to derive from earlier populations that settled in the region thousands of years before. But archaeologists have puzzled over red and black pottery discovered at Canaanite sites that closely resembles ceramics found in the Caucasus Mountains, some 750 miles to the northwest. Historians also have noted that many Canaanite names derive from Hurrian, a non-Semitic language originating in the Caucasus. Carmel adds that the migration appears to have been more than a one-time event, and could have involved multiple waves throughout the Bronze Age. One brother and sister who lived around 1500 BC in Megiddo, in what is now northern Israel, were from a family that had migrated relatively recently from the northeast. The team also noted that individuals at two coastal sites, Ashkelon in Israel and Sidon in Lebanon, show slightly more genetic diversity. That may be the result of broader trade links in Mediterranean port towns than inland settlements. An archaeologist at Johns Hopkins University who was not involved in the study, said that the biological data provides important insight into how Canaanites shared a notable number of genes as well as cultural traits. And Haber from the Wellcome Trust noted that the quantity of DNA results is particularly impressive, given the difficulty of extracting samples from old bones buried in such a warm climate that can quickly degrade genetic material.